Welcome to another Skills First beginner workshop for developing your enterprising skills. I'm Kathleen Webb, the founder and president of Skill Squirrel, and it is my pleasure for Skill Squirrel to host this series for Biz Coach Services. Today is session number 8, and our topic is Business Research Basics. This session will be very timely for anyone that has a business idea that needs validation. During the session, you will learn about the process of conducting business research. This process will help you to determine the viability of your business concept by knowing your market. Our presenter from Biz Coach Services is Vern Vautour. Vern has more than 35 years of experience providing small business coaching, training, and consulting. His many accomplishments include presenting small business, life, and career planning workshops for the cities of Toronto, Mississauga, St. Catharines, various colleges and universities, and many nonprofits and Indigenous organizations. He has also adjudicated and provided training for business pitch competitions, and he has held senior operations and marketing management positions with major franchises. Plus, Vern won a major national award in best practices in youth entrepreneurship training in Canada. Over to you, Vern.
Welcome, everyone. Today's topic, we're going to actually talk about business research basics. For the most part, it's secondary research. So it's very important to understand that primary research is when you actually speak with clients, interview them, get information from them, maybe you have a prototype, or you ask them how they think about a service that you're providing. That's primary research. Secondary research is information that's already out there. And you'll find Google is your best friend. And I'm going to show you some techniques today. So the three main topics I'm going to talk about is why research, the research process, and I'll follow up with some tips at the end. So why research? It's very important to understand that in starting a business, you want to make sure that you collect enough information so that you make wise decisions. So some of the things that you need to do is confirm your potential market, know your customer and your target markets, develop your products or services, do a competitive analysis, prepare for business planning strategies. You also might want to do some research for funding and strategic relationships, and of course, risks and feasibility studies. So let's look at these categories that I just mentioned. So the first one is confirm your potential market. Why would I want to confirm my potential market? Well, for starters, I want to make sure that I'm in an industry big enough to support me. So I need to know the size of the industry. I'd like to know I need to spot gaps in the market and identify trends and opportunities, and also learn about the industry, especially if I haven't been in it in the past. You need to find out where your customers and target markets are. So when I look at a target market, I look at it at 3 different levels. 1 is geographic, where do they live? 2 is demographic, who are they? And 3, psychographic, or the behaviors and culture, and the wants and needs of the clients that you're ideally looking for. We want to develop products and services, and potentially with 4 Ps thinking. The 4 Ps being product, price, place, and promotion. So the idea behind this is, as we develop our products, we want to establish what the customer's wants and needs are. We need to prototype and survey. We need to test for proof of concept, and we need to get a sense of the potential volume. In this case, we're doing primary research. So it needs to be integrated as sort of the full research package. The next step we need to look at or consider is a competitive analysis. So what we want to know about competitors, and we can either look them up online, we can physically walk into a competitor's property, potentially, especially if it's a retail store, so we can do some observation or or that sort of thing. Or we may have worked with a competitor. So what we want to know is we want to know, and we want to know how long they've been around, their strengths and their weaknesses, their business model. Are they bricks and mortar? Are they internet? Are they e-commerce, or both, or combination, or hybrid, or what have you? We want to look and understand their product or service mix, their reputation, potentially their pricing and pricing strategies, the size and the scope of their operations, their connections and affiliations, and also their organizational structure. When I start looking at those things, then I get a better sense of what potentially my competitive advantage is, or how I can actually be more unique than my competitors. So it's very important to understand the competitive environment, and to actually do research on competition. The great thing is that if I do a SWOT analysis, which I talked about in an earlier workshop, where I look at the strengths and the weaknesses, when I identify the strengths and the weaknesses of myself, of my business, of my potential business, I can also do a SWOT analysis, or examine the strengths and the weaknesses of my competitors. Of course, we have to do research and figure out, what our business is going to look like, and business planning is part of that. So by looking at competition, by looking at the industry, by understanding what customers want, we're then in a way better position to do the best strategic planning exercise for your business, called the business plan. So what we need to do is we need to flesh out our mission and our purpose, our business model, what our product mix is, who our target market is, the operational side and setup of the business, working our budgets, our costs, and then figuring out a plan for scaling the business, whether it be up, down, or in different directions. And of course, that becomes our action plan. We also need to find out where we can get funding and how we need to develop strategic relationships. So as it relates to planning your setup requirements, we need to make lists of physical things that we need, supplies potentially, what the space looks like, what our facility or processes look like. So you can see that as I start evolving my business idea, I might have initially thought that I'm going to start a bricks and mortar type business or an e-commerce type business. And then you end up going a different direction because of your research has led you into a new direction, or an opportunity to take a different route. So we need to establish our supply chains and get pricing. We need to determine our funding requirements. So once we have lists of what it's going to cost to start up, we also need the resources to make that happen. So potentially reaching out to funders might be one of the steps that you have to do. So we need to look into that and develop those relationships so that we can move forward in our business. And of course, we need to do a risk analysis. So the whole idea of doing research and doing it properly is to actually mitigate risks, enhance the possibilities of our rewards, to determine the feasibility of our business model, and also it gives us an opportunity to do better action planning. So in the next level is research topics. So I'm actually going to give you examples and go through. I'll take one idea, for example, a landscape business, and as an example, and I'll take you through the research process. And the first thing we need to do is we need to develop keywords. We need to figure out the NAICS codes and NAICS codes. I'll explain that in a minute. And industry statistics. So we have to look at industry trends, statistics, associations, and trade shows. We also need to look at geographic and demographic data and labor market information, as well as potential revenues, industry suppliers, and industry competitors. So I'll go over these now. So as it relates to keywords, we actually have a handout that we're going to pass along. I've actually been using a form similar to this since 1996, so it's almost 30 years, believe it or not. And it works today as it worked back then. And usually I would meet with clients before the internet. I'd meet with clients at the Toronto Metro Reference Library to help them do their research. And so there's a process involved, and we'll start out with getting the keywords. So as you can see, I have career objective written there, but your business objective, your career objective. But one of the things that you want to do is you want to identify with the job that's most aligned to the business that you want to run. So for example, here's my example. I want to do a landscape business. So if that's the case, then my career objective would be landscape worker or manager. I'm going to look that up in a moment. And a great way to think about your business, if you're scaling up or you're deciding or you're thinking that you want a business bigger than yourself, it's really wise to consider doing what I would call the, not the table, sorry. It would be really nice to do an organizational chart of your business now that in fact, of what it might look like in 5 or 10 years from now, especially if you're planning to hire other employees. So one of the great things about NOC, and I'll talk about that in a second, the National Occupational Classification Codes, is to figure out or to list all the potential jobs that you might be hiring people under in the future, including subcontract as well. So in this case, what I've done is I've developed the business in this example is landscape business. The position might be landscape worker or manager. The primary industry would be the landscape industry. The primary keyword would be landscape, and secondary keywords would include construction and horticulture. So let's look at the NAICS codes and the NOC codes. So what is a NOC code? The NOC code is the National Occupational Classification Codes, and they're numbers that are designated to Canada's official job classification system. There's over 11,000 job titles. They're used in the job bank and other HR applications when you're looking for work. The job descriptions include duties, education, and training required. And it's an absolute great tool for human resource planning, especially if you're building a business that requires an organizational charts and employees into the future. And that includes subcontract positions and or if you're developing or working on a company manual. So here's an example, or this is what the NOC, the landing page for the NOC code looks like. So let's say we want to select a landscape position. So what we do is we go to that link, National Occupational Classification, which is a Government of Canada website. And in this case, what we want to do, we can search by NOC code, which at this moment I don't know, but we'll search by job title. Actually, I do know the code, but that's fine. So we're going to type in landscape. And what you want to do is when you're doing research, try typing in the root word. Don't try putting in absolutely everything you want. Well, you can actually. At the end of the day, you need to. But you can start out with a root word, and sometimes you get prompts and hints and suggestions about other positions that are close to that. So as I hit search for this particular job in landscape, interestingly, I get a number of different positions. So I have the codes. These are the NOC codes, 20011 for architecture and science managers, landscape and horticultural technicians and specialists, painters and sculptors, contractors, supervisors, landscaping, grounds maintenance, and horticultural services. And then landscaping, grounds maintenance, labor. So these are the two that I'll pick. But I just wanted to point something out. If I actually select contractors and supervisors, which I just did, I get my NOC number. My NOC code is 82031 for a landscape contractor and supervisor. Now, what's interesting, and this is where things get interesting. You had an idea. Your idea was to do a specific thing, or you had a specific business model in mind. And then when you look at potentially the job description, maybe there's things in there that you don't do or don't want to do or wouldn't enjoy doing or absolutely love. It really doesn't matter. But what we can do is we can look at the index of titles. And if we're in business, it might give us ideas for subcontract work. See the list here? So you can see the index of titles to be anywhere from working on golf clubs. So if we're doing a lawn and garden center, maybe we go after commercial clients. And there's actually some hints here in terms of some of the types of businesses that we might want to go after. So I find that if we're observant and we're creative and we pay attention to what we're looking at and we're open to opportunities, we might find ourselves digging into different little areas. And when we go back to the market niche planning that we did in another workshop or presentation, we talked about the possibilities of opening up all the different things that you can do so that if something's not working right, I've got backup plans. And that's potentially really helpful. So here you got park laborers. I actually, when I dig into the NAICS codes, it digs down even deeper into different positions. So we'll look at that in a couple of minutes. So there's a bunch of example titles. Here's the main description of what a contractor in the landscaping business would do. These are the main duties. And of course, you know, depending on the business model and what you're doing, there are going to be variations. But it's going to help you if you ever want to, let's say, hire somebody in your business. You actually have a job description that you can go to, and it makes it much easier to find people. The other thing too that you notice here is that the employment requirements. So there's the employment requirements here, and you want to start that business, and maybe you have everything that you need, maybe you don't. So now you can make a list of, you know, schools that you might want to attend, or private courses, or certifications that you might potentially need. So once you do that, now we can start digging down and looking at different educational institutions as well. So now we've got contractors, supervisors. So here's some exclusions, but it also gives us some other potential opportunities. So we got contractors and supervisors, other construction trades, horticultural technicians, managers in agriculture. Never thought about that, but that might be something that's workable too, or managers in horticulture. So these are all different job descriptions that you can drill down into. So now that I know that, now that I have a NOC code, I can go back here to my research. And as you can see, I've taken 85,121 landscape laborers and 82,031 landscape contractors. And what I want to do is I want to collect this data. So on my research on this particular form, what I do is I go to the bottom of my tables. I copy and paste the domain names of where I did the searches, and I copy and paste the information down below. Now what I do is I also get the URL, and I save that as well, and I write down source. So now I have the source, and I just, as you can see, I just merely, you know, I can just click through because I saved it, and there I go right to the information that I need. So I can save that information in my research. And if I write a business plan, guess what? Or if I write a paper about an area of the industry that I'm interested in, I have all the backup. I have all the evidence, and I have all the links, and I can always go back to it later. So we just talked about NOC codes, which is National Occupational Classification. Now we're going to talk about NAICS code. NAICS codes have more to do with business, and it's the North American Industry Classification System. It was actually introduced it was introduced along with NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, which was between United States, Canada, and Mexico. Previous to that, Mexico wasn't included in the industrial classification systems. So there was the standard industrial classification system in Canada and the standard classification, or SC, in the United States. And what they did is they married the two together. In the database with NAICS code, there's billions, not millions, sorry, not billions, but rather millions of businesses in the database. And you can use those codes to get more statistical data from the industry. You can find out who the top key players are in the industry. You can get ideas about other businesses. Plus, what I find is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they need suppliers. So by looking up the NAICS codes, we can find suppliers in different industries. So for example, if you wanted to buy tractor equipment for your landscape business, you can look up the NAICS code for that, and you can get lists of companies, manufacturers, etc. If you needed pieces or parts, you can now look for pieces and parts using NAICS codes, or establishing what the NAICS codes are, and then finding out where the companies are by using Thomas registries in the United States and Scott's directories in Canada. So I'll show that to you shortly. It's very expensive, by the way, to subscribe to Scott's directories, whereas Thomas registries, there's a lot of free information, but I'll give you a hack in terms of how you can get into Scott's directories potentially for free. So here's an example. If I drill down to NAICS.com, this is my opening page. So you can see that there's a keyword search and then followed by a drill down table. So I'm just going to drill down to this URL, and I'll get in here. And as you can see, there's a drill down table. So it has all the major industries in the United States. It also lists the number of businesses that are in the database. So in the United States, there's 7,200 on US businesses as it relates to these sectors on the left. And then there's a bunch of other sectors on the right. So 10 million, 17 million altogether. And you can see by industry how many there are per industry. So what I'm going to do, because I don't know where, at this point, I don't know where landscaping falls into place. So I just type in the root word or the keyword landscape. And you'll notice that what I get is I get 3 different titles, and I can pick whichever one that I like. So potentially if I do architectural services, the NAICS code would be 341310. So that's architectural services. And then if I wanted landscape architectural services, that would be 541320. And if I wanted landscaping services, which I'm going to pick, the NAICS code would be 561730. So I'm going to hit that. I'm going to actually link through. And you'll see that this will describe the industry. It also shows you the 10 biggest businesses in the landscaping sector in USA. Now this is US. Keep in mind. But now I know that my NAICS code is 5631730. I can go to Scott's directories in Canada and I can look up that NAICS code and I can find out all the companies, potentially competitors, maybe people who I can get subcontract work from, etc. Also, if you look at, there's some cross-referencing, and there's also the index of entries. So things that you might not have thought about as a specialist in landscaping is maybe arborist services, cemetery plot care services, fertilizing lawns, hydro seeding, interior landscaping. So there's a number of different, it goes on and on and on. And a lot of some landscaping companies get involved in snow plowing services combined with landscaping. So it falls under the same category. But as you can see, there's a number of different ideas, and you might want to generalize and do some of it, or you know, some different categories, or you might want to specialize and just do that one thing. So once I understand that code, as you can see, there's a different areas. And now that I know that landscaping services is 561730, again, I can put that in my research master, and I can use it as you know, my key data for doing searches on Google. Next, we want to look at industry statistics. So we need industry statistics, trends, associations, and trade shows. Why is this important? Well, I'll tell you what. You want to start a business, but the one thing that you really want to find out is, how big is the industry? How big is the industry? Is there enough room for me? Are there enough people working in the industry? Are there enough businesses? What does that look like? So one of the things that we'll do is we'll look at statistics, trends, associations, and trade shows. So here's the key thing. Google is my friend, and I find information extremely fast just by sticking to the program here. So if you want industry statistics in your industry, then what you want to do is industry statistics in your industry, your keyword, and then in Canada or in Ontario or in Australia. It doesn't really matter where the location is, but in this case, we're Ontario and Canada based at this reading. And so, so you want industry statistics in the landscaping industry in Canada. So it really makes information, like the research that's out there and how quickly you can get to the information, is incredible. So let me just show you. So if I press or I select industry statistics in the landscape industry in Canada in Google, this is what I get. So right off the bat, especially for a small business, we don't need volumes of information to describe how big the industry is. There's probably enough to suffice just by having this one single link. Look at this, without even going anywhere. IBIS World, by the way, IBIS World is a very credible organization. They give me enough information for a small business, but if I'm a large business or I'm scaling up, I might want to invest in an IBIS World market review, which is going to cost me somewhere between $900 and $1,200. So $900 and $1,200 for a small business that's just starting up can be a use of significant resources that potentially really doesn't, you really don't need it right at the very beginning, unless you're automatically or already going to scale up significantly right from the get-go. Then you really need that information. So as you can see, I would open this article up and I would say, according to IBIS World, because that's a credible a source, pardon me, a credible source. And according to IBIS World, in the landscaping services in 2022, the market size was approximately $17.5 billion. What does that tell me right off the bat? It tells me that the industry is huge and I could cut into the fold quite easily. Thank you very much. The only thing is that what I need to do is I need to start thinking about regional, local, national. I need to look at different locations, and I can actually get labor market information to do that a little bit later on, and I'll show you. Okay. So as you can see, there's just right off the bat, just typing in a simple keyword, the industry that I'm in, I get my information almost immediately. I can actually go down below and I can see that there's market research reports from IBIS World. There's one from Statistica. There's one from the Government of Canada. Innovation in Science. So there's quite a bit, like just on that one first page, I literally get all the information I need to use in my business plan and to show that it's potentially feasible. The market is big enough to support me. Okay. So what I would do is I I would copy the URL. I would open up a report. I would get the information from it. So for example, this is an older report, actually. No, actually it's not. So you get some of the key information here. And this was updated January 23rd. So in my discussion, in my argument, in the data that I'm showing a potential client or in my business plan, I have, according to IBIS World, in January 2023, the landscaping service business in Canada was a $17.5 billion business. And although there has been a little bit of a decline of 1.8% in 2022, but on average, the industry has grown 6.9% per year on average since 2017 to 2022. And that's pretty well most of the information I need, but I can go ahead and I can dig down deeper. I can get some regional information, some local information. So I'm just showing you how to use keywords. Now we want to look at industry trends. I'm pretty well going to get things that are very, very close, but I've already earmarked this. And again, I do a Google search and I use those words, the keywords, and you can see I got the same report again. And what I want to do is look at potentially trends. So there's a trend 2023 landscape industry trend survey. So I can dig down deeper. There's more door intelligence as well, gardening market trends and growth. So just with a few clicks, you can get to the information you're looking for, and I can dig down and I can have a look at the article. I can find out where it was written, why it was written, and basically, so here there's something interesting here because you have some information where it says landscape industry challenges. So this would be helpful, right? So difficulty finding qualified labor, there seems to be an 85% challenge there. Rising costs, 69%. Competition from lower priced competitors seems to be 28%. Acquiring and maintaining equipment, 23%. Challenges managing company cash flow, 22%. And competition from larger, more established companies, 4%. So when we look at data, we look at it from what's the relevance to our business? How is that going to affect our business? What do we need to look out for? So you can actually see that there is a labor shortage in this field. So what can I do about it? So that potentially is a good thing. Maybe it's not a good thing, but there is a shortage. Landscaping crew wages are on the rise. So if that's a trend, then I've got to watch out. If I'm a business and I want to hire people, I need to know what that is. I'm actually going to look at that. I can actually download this industry trend report. You'll find that almost every industry has that kind of information. Then we look at associations, and I'm going to tell you why associations are extremely important to connect with. Typically, and look at this, landscaping associations. So you can see that I typed in Google, associations in the landscape industry in Canada, and right off the bat, I got a whole bunch of different landscape associations. And what I want to do is I want to read through each one of these associations and potentially not join them right away, maybe just kind of observe and see if it might be a good fit for the future, right? So one of the things is, how big is their member base? How long have they been around? What's their mission and purpose? What can they do for me as a business? Now, I'll just give you a little hint. Most associations, and I'll go right back to where I was a second ago, most associations run or have or sponsor trade shows every year. Most associations provide resources for their members. Most associations will actually have what we call certification programs that we can take and we can get the certification. So that's why I say don't jump into this quickly, but observe and figure out what it is that you should be joining or not joining or belong to or not belong to. You can get newsletters, you can sign up for free blogs, you get all kinds of information, which helps you to understand changes and trends in the marketplace gives you tips and advice in terms of your business. And every industry is like this. Not just landscaping, every single industry. So it's really important to know that. And the other thing too is that associations usually run trade shows. And what I tell people is one trade show, I'm just going to hit this link here, but one trade show is worth about 6 months of intensive research. And the reason is because you get the latest data, you get statistics at a trade show, you get the latest trends, you rub shoulders with people in the industry, and you see through the booths and the demonstrations and the small workshops that they do, you actually see what's going on in the marketplace. So I find trade shows extremely helpful. I did a stint where I was doing business turnarounds, and I would work to turn around different styles of businesses that I'd never been in. And all I needed to do was go to a trade show if they happen to be running, and I could go to a trade show and I'd be right in the swing of things in no time. So if you see that, like for example, there's a couple of trade shows here, that there's one on Grow West Green Industry Show and Conference, November 16th. I don't know where it is, but there's the January, the Landscape Ontario Congress. Landscape Ontario is Canada's largest and longest running trade show, okay, for landscape professionals. So something like that, if you've never been in it, it might be a huge advantage to go to it. Don't get a booth the first year. Make sure that you actually attend a show and see if it's worth your while investing in the future. The great thing about opting out the first time around is that you get to see all your potential competitors. You get to see all the new stuff, all the new trends, all the new equipment and processes and software that are coming out. So you're now an observer and you're collecting data. And so and also you see how your competitors are presenting and selling themselves. So it's really a gold mine of information to be able to go to a trade show. Now here's the kicker. If you look at this Landscape Ontario Congress trade show, it's January 9th, 2024. I'll bet my right shoe that they run this conference or this event every year in January. They don't run it any other month. So the one that runs in November every year. So the problem is, and this is why you want to do your research as quickly as possible, you want to find out what trade shows are in your industry so that you can get out there and get the information you want quickly. If you don't get the information you want quickly, what's going to happen is you're going to miss out. Because if the show went by November 16th and you found out about it on November 20th, you have to wait till next year. So it's better to do the research on trade shows right from the very beginning. So now let's look at geographic and demographic data. So if we look at geographic and demographic data, there's two sides of it, right? Two sides of it, rather. If your customer is a consumer, here's some of the things you might want to know, or here's some of the things that might be your target audience. It might be age, it might be income, sex, it might be certain cultures, religion, location where they live, maybe by occupation, family size, cultural, ethnical, or racial, what their buying motivations are. So actually that's your psychographic buying motivations. And then when and how often do they purchase? So what you want to do is you want to look at geographic data, and you'll find that out by, again, using Google to find out what your customer characteristics are. On the other hand, we have the business side, and sometimes if your customer is a business, sometimes we want to know the location, the size of the company, the type of business, the decision makers in that business, professional affiliations, what motivates their buying decisions, and when do they buy. So your target markets in business might include business to business, which is B2B, business to consumer, which is B2C, and business to government, right? And there's also C2C, consumer to consumer, but so those are like flea markets and things like that. So the next thing you want to do when we're looking for geo or demographic data, if we're looking for federal data, what we want to do is we want to look at census data from Canada. So for example, census data for here, and we get all kinds of different profiles on every kind of industry. So if I go in census data for Canada and I want to know, for example, how many homes are there in the area that I serve? So if I'm in Scarborough or Oshawa or Brampton or wherever I am in the GTA, in the Greater Toronto Area, or for that matter, since our audience could be a wider audience anywhere, right? We can pick on regions, we can pick on provinces, and we can get general data about, the average age, the average income, potentially what percentage of people own homes. So if I ran a landscape business, it's going to be very important for me to understand potentially how many commercial businesses there are if I'm chasing businesses, or how many homes there are, and then of those homes, how many are owned and how many are rented. That's the sort of thing that we're looking for. I can also do provincial demographics where we're actually say, we need to dig down deeper. I only have a 1 hour window here in terms of presenting, but what I'm saying is Google's your friend. You can get Ontario demographics. Again, you can get, ethnicity breakdown, racial breakdown, trends, demographic trends. You can see when we look at populations, whether certain ethnic categories are growing or shrinking, whether people are owning more or less. We can get all that data. It's unbelievable. So we have to decide what data we need, stay focused, and then go after it. If you're super focused and incredibly smart with your keywords, you'll get to the information you're looking for. Then you can go to local. This is interesting too, because a lot of small businesses that I work with are local. They work in neighborhoods or potentially maybe the whole city or whatever. So if we go to City of Toronto demographics, I can actually dig down into, and this breaks down. Look at this, data research and maps, demographics of Toronto. I got census profile, so that's a federal summary for this for Toronto. We can look at data maps. We can do City of Toronto neighborhoods maps. So there's 135 neighborhoods in Toronto. There's about 125 BIAs, or business improvement areas. So if I'm catering to business improvement areas, I can actually get the addresses and the information about all the different BIAs. So you can see that if I take Toronto at a glance, I can break that down into finer pieces. But as you can see, look at that. So you've got quick indicators, you've got economic indicators, social indicators, geography, housing, and homelessness. So those are 3 or 4 categories. It's very, very easy to find the information if you know how to use those keywords. I can't impress more. So the next category we need to look at is labor market information. Why is that important? Well, we want to know what the trends are. We want to know if we can find workers, for that matter. Is technology there? Indicators show that there's going to be some huge labor shortages in certain industries, and the province of Ontario is moving to establish trades and to get training done to actually have enough people in the future. Our immigration policies as well are now starting to be focused and geared towards what the market needs. So these are the types of things that are important, and how can I tap into them? So I might go to Labor Market Information Ontario, for example, and there's free reports on economic forecasts. There's labor market information for job profiles in Ontario. And so we can get breakdowns. There's quite a lot of information. I'm not going to take the time to go over it now. There's a couple of things that I really want to show you, and that's how to get to a Scots directory, which I'll do in a few minutes. Now we want to look at job bank trends analysis. So, or we want to do labor market trends in, and again, keyword in the industry in wherever. So the job trends, for example, if I were to search that, again, I look at job title. I know I'm going back to the NOC code just for a moment, but I'm going to type in landscape. And what I come up with, I've got landscape worker, I had that one, planner, painter, laborer. So I'm going to go to laborer, and I'm going to search that. And I can actually find, as you can see, the whole a range of information I can get. If you look at this particular area right here, this strip going across the top here, I can get the summary, which kind of summarizes each of the categories. Then I can go into description, which digs down into this area. I can look at wages. I can look at prospects. I can actually figure out what the wages are in Toronto. So if I were to dig down, or how many job postings there are in Canada, in Ontario, in Toronto. So all those types of things break down. So if I'm a company and I decide, oh, I need to hire somebody, how would I advertise to someone? Well, let's just go to the jobs that are being posted right now and see what they're doing, right? And we can do something similar, or we can do something slightly different, or we can try to appeal to potential good employees by understanding what's going on now, and then we can make the changes. So as you can see, if I'm hiring a landscape laborer, I actually have job postings, the requirements, that's the educational requirements and training, and the skills that one needs. So if I look at the skills, for example, so you can see some of the tasks that are involved in that position. We can see some of the skills involved. So again, if I'm going to interview somebody as a potential employee down the road, I have everything that I need in order to make a better decision in terms of hiring an employee. Now, interestingly, I might want to look at potential revenues in the industry. I'll just write this down. It's NAICS code 561730. That was a NAICS code for landscaping. So I can go to, this is a link. This is a financial database of every company that registers with Revenue Canada and reports income. So that I can actually get performance data and create my own report. So I can have a look at what the potential landscape looks like. I'll always create a report for clients to just have a view of what that industry or how that industry is performing. So in terms of creating a report, I can create a report for businesses between 30,000 a year and 5 million, or I can pick the range between 5 million and 20 million. Most of the clients I work with are small business under $5 million, so I'll pick that. I can also do a comparison. I can look at all Canada, or I can just do a province. I'll do Ontario. And I can look at all the data from all businesses, incorporated business or unincorporated businesses. So I might say all businesses, but on the other hand, I might also do a separate report for unincorporated businesses to see how they're performing. Then I have to look at, do I want this report expressed in total revenue or profit margin? I'm going to go with total revenue. And do I want the value in percentages or thousands of dollars? I'm okay with percentages. And I want to search for an industry. So I can use a NAICS code, or I can drill down and find the industry that I'm looking at. In this case, I got 561730, which is my NAICS code, and I'm going to do a search. And you can see what popped up was landscaping services. So I'm going to select that and create a report. So what I end up getting is this is, I would say that the accuracy, okay, the accuracy is about 98%. And so in this sample, there's 7,200 businesses that are actually listed in this sample. So this is the law of averages. And so what happens is you have the bottom 25%, the lower 25%, the upper middle, and the top quartile. So if I feel that I'm going to be doing, let's say, 214,000 to 572,000 in the first year, then what I can do is I can look at this column. So that's actually the upper middle. Believe it or not, the lower middle are under 214,000. So maybe, again, I have to pick the category. But as you can see, it sort of lists exactly what, doesn't have information on some of the ratios, but you've got total revenue, you got total expenses and net profit. And then percentages, percent of businesses. So in this case, most businesses posted a net loss. I don't let that scare me, okay, at all, because you have a lot of tax write-offs at tax time. So, some businesses do operate under a loss, but they also paid the owner and you made income from it. But this is something that you want to consider doing is actually looking at performance data on an industry. So now what we want to do is we want to find industry suppliers. And if we know the NAICS codes, we can actually use something like Scott's directories. I'm just going to go to the next slide just for a second, and I'll just pop right back. But the thing that we want to do is we want to collect data on suppliers. So there's customer relationship management, or we can use Excel spreadsheets to collect data on potential suppliers and vendors. So we want to keep track of who they are, their names, their addresses, develop those relationships. It's so important. But I'll just go back, and I want to show you Scott's directories for a reason, because this would have all the NAICS codes. So for example, I end up at the Toronto Library and the Toronto Reference Library provides, I have to have a library card and live in Toronto. So I have a business, and my business is in Toronto. And the reason why I'm using the Toronto Public Library or Mississauga or whatever major center you're in, you should be able to get access through the reference section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Scott's directory. And the reason why I'm showing this to you is because Scott's directory for an online subscription annually costs anywhere from $2,000 for just a region to $6,000 for the whole country, to $9,000 for being able to get all the data you want per year. And so I can't afford that. I work with a lot of small businesses, and if I can get it for free, I will. So now I'm leaving the site and I'm going to the Scott's Business Directory site. And this is how I do it. I'm just showing you how I do it. It's not wanting to go. I don't know why. Oh, it's connecting. Okay, sorry. Okay, so in Canada, there's 987,000 records or businesses, right? So what I want to do is I can either do a product search. So if I'm looking for pieces or parts for my business, so let's say I have a fashion business and I'm doing tailoring, or I'm doing clothing or what have you, and I need buttons, or I need rivets, or I need threads. I can actually find the companies here in Canada using a Scott's directory. That's why I love it. So if we have the NAICS code, we can punch that in, or we can go to product keyword or product name search. We can go by business type, and we're going to get some really helpful data here. So I'm going to go to NAICS code, and I'm going to type in 561, or I'll go to 561, 561,730. So when I drill down to this category, 561,000, then that drills down into different categories. So I've got landscape services, and there's my 561,730. So I'm going to select that one. It's going to drop that down to the menu below. I'm going to hit search, and voila. I have 3,800 companies in Canada. Now I can start trimming that down. I can do some different search criteria. I can do it by province, by city, whatever. But at the end of the day, what I do is I have companies here that maybe, like for example, 519 Property Maintenance, they might subcontract to my landscaping business. Or I get some ideas about what companies are doing. I find this really helpful, and I just thought I'd throw it out there. So now we look for industry competitors, and I mentioned earlier that what we want to do is we want to do a competition analysis. So I'll be really quick here, but in a competition analysis, what we really want to do is we want to look at different competitors. So we can find competitors by using NAICS codes, right? So we can get lists of companies that are doing the same thing that we are. We can observe companies. We can check them out online on their website. We can actually do comparisons. So what we want to do is we want to compare, are they online? Do they do e-commerce? How well do they do it? What's their product mix? What types of products do they do? How long have they been in business? How many people do they have? How many employees do they have? What's the history of the company? As it relates to their pricing, what are the ranges of pricing for the different types of products they do? What's the quality of their business? How is their brand perceived? Right? So you can see, there's a lot of things that we can actually compare. My competition analysis sheets are about 4 or 5 pages long, similar to this. But what I do is I look at the company that I'm working with, and then I look at all the relevant questions. So those are the types of things that you want. Now, as it relates, I'm almost done here. So I'll get into some research tips here, okay? So research tips. Develop great keywords. Develop great keywords. If you have the right keywords, you'll get to the information that you're looking for really quickly and very efficiently. Stay focused and relevant. If I do a search and I end up on a page, I can get buried in overburdening myself and overloading myself with information. So try to stay focused and remember what you were looking for and just get that information. The other stuff you can go and read later on. Maybe there's some interesting things. Yes, definitely. And maybe save the URLs to look at it later. Learn about the NAICS codes. Understand the National Occupational codes for job positions, because there's a lot of valuable information there, especially for the labor market information. NAICS codes as well, especially for industry. I demonstrated how you can use the NAICS code and NAICS codes and how they can come in handy. And then don't forget to copy and paste the URLs of the domain names that you searched and save them for your appendices, or save them for your bibliography, or save them for a point in time where you go back in and maybe you do a quick little quote and then you have the source of your information. It makes you look so credible. And guess what? If a banker or a partner or somebody wanted to check, they go to that link and boom, you have all the credibility in the world because you have the facts to back up exactly what you're saying. And then use the form where you can circulate, use that form to capture data. So in summary, benefits of good market research is that we get to minimize the risks. We get to identify opportunities. It's an opportunity to connect with the right audience or customers. It's actually best practices strategic planning. And we make better decision making, and also we can enhance our success. So thank you.